I never imagined that a single evening could unravel the life I had built so carefully. My husband, Daniel, was away on a business trip, leaving me alone in our cozy townhouse. The silence should have been comforting, but instead, it felt like a prelude to something sinister. I remember sitting on the edge of our bed, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, trying to distract myself from the nagging feeling that something was off. That's when I received a message from him. Alex, Daniel's closest friend, the man we had invited into our home countless times, the one I thought I could trust. The words on the screen froze me instantly. "We need to talk tonight. Alone." My first reaction was disbelief. Alone? With him? My mind raced, trying to rationalize it. Perhaps it was an urgent matter about Daniel's surprise for our anniversary. Maybe he wanted advice on a work project. But deep down, an unshakable unease settled in my chest. Something about the phrasing, the insistence, didn't sit right. I could feel my heartbeat quicken, each pulse echoing like a warning. I tried to ignore it, telling myself I was overthinking. But when I heard a soft knock on the door that evening, my stomach twisted. I wasn't expecting anyone. Hesitant, I opened it to find Alex standing there, his smile a little too casual, his eyes lingering just a fraction too long. "Bella," he said, his voice low, almost hypnotic. "I needed to see you. Just for a moment." I froze, unsure whether to call Daniel, run, or simply nod and let him in. He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, his presence filling the room in a way that felt both familiar and terrifying. He laughed softly, brushing a hand through his hair as if that simple gesture could mask the storm brewing beneath. I noticed then, the faint smell of alcohol on his breath, the tension in his posture, the way his gaze kept flicking toward my trembling hands. "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though my entire body screamed that I was in danger. Alex leaned closer, his tone suddenly shifting from friendly to unnervingly intimate. "Bella, there are things Daniel doesn't know, things you need to hear." My heart dropped. What could he possibly know that Daniel doesn't? And more importantly, why was I being dragged into it alone? I took a step back, my back hitting the edge of the bed. The room suddenly felt smaller, tighter, like the walls themselves were conspiring against me. Alex's eyes, once a sign of friendship, now seemed to hold secrets meant to trap me. That night, I realized that trust could be a dangerous illusion. I thought I knew him, that I could read his intentions, but the line between concern and obsession was thinner than I ever imagined. As he spoke, I noticed the subtle shifts. The way his words hinted at memories and moments Daniel had never shared with me, the way he seemed to know how to manipulate fear into compliance. By the time he left, my hands were shaking, and a silent question burned in my mind. How could someone I trusted so completely become the source of my deepest fear? I knew I had to act, but I didn't yet understand the magnitude of what I was facing. Somewhere between anger and terror, a resolve began to form. I would not be silenced, I would not be broken, and I would find a way to reclaim control over my life. But the truth was already there, hidden in the corners of my home, in the words he had whispered, in the shadows that stretched longer than they should have. And I knew, without a doubt, that the story was only beginning. The next morning, I woke up feeling like a fragile shell, my thoughts tangled between fear and disbelief. Alex's visit haunted me, lingering like smoke in a room I couldn't open the windows to. Every sound, every creak of the house, made my stomach twist. I kept picturing him standing there, his smile casual but his eyes calculating, as if he already knew the chaos he had sown in my mind. I decided to avoid thinking about it, pretending the night hadn't happened. I went through my morning routine mechanically, making coffee, brushing my hair, glancing at the mirror, trying to convince myself that nothing had changed. But deep down, I knew something had. My trust had been shaken, and I couldn't ignore that subtle tremor in the air. Daniel returned that evening, cheerful as always, unaware of the storm swirling inside me. I wanted to tell him everything immediately, every word, every glance, every subtle threat, but something stopped me. How could I explain that his closest friend, the one we both trusted, had crossed a line that should never have existed? The words seemed inadequate. I feared his disbelief, the sense that I might be overreacting, that I could ruin our friendship forever. So I kept quiet, observing Alex from a distance over the next few days. Every text, Every message from him now carried hidden layers, and I began noticing things I hadn't before. Subtle reminders, references to moments that didn't make sense. A photograph on Daniel's desk, one that had clearly been moved recently. A casual comment about a party we'd attended months ago, but his wording suggested he knew something he shouldn't have. It was during a late-night search through old emails that I discovered the first clue. A message from Alex to Daniel, long forgotten, with vague hints about a truth that would ruin everything if it surfaced. My hands shook as I scrolled through it, each word planting seeds of dread. What truth? And why was I only now realizing the danger I was in? The more I read, the clearer it became that Alex had been planning something meticulously, hiding behind the facade of friendship while pulling strings that I could barely see. I began keeping a journal, recording every detail, every interaction, every fleeting sense of menace. At work, at home, even in casual conversations, I noticed the subtle manipulations. Alex had woven himself into our lives like a spider spinning an invisible web. And I realized something horrifying. I was caught in it alone, because Daniel's trust in him blinded him to the danger. That night, I confronted my own fear. I couldn't run, I couldn't scream, and I couldn't tell Daniel yet. I had to understand the extent of Alex's plan before it was too late. So, I waited, I observed, and I calculated. Every smile I forced, every casual word I spoke to him during encounters, was now part of a silent battle I had begun waging. I had to be clever to survive, to protect what was mine, my family, my home, my peace. But the question lingered, gnawing at me in every quiet moment. How much does he already know about me? About Daniel? About the things I thought were private, safe, untouchable? Each passing day brought a new revelation, a subtle hint of betrayal, a shadow in the corner of my life I could no longer ignore. And then it happened, a small, almost imperceptible slip from Alex during a dinner. A word, a gesture, something that revealed more than he intended. I caught it, sharp as a knife, and it changed everything. The first thread of the truth I needed to pull. But what would unravel when I did? I had a decision to make: confront the darkness now, risking everything, or play the careful game, letting Alex reveal himself through his own mistakes. I chose the latter. Survival required patience. Revenge required precision. And I was just beginning to understand how far I was willing to go. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting slats of light across the living room floor. But instead of comfort, it made the shadows sharper, reminding me of everything Alex had done and everything I still didn't know. I poured my coffee with trembling hands, thinking about the slip he had made at dinner last night, the word, the glance, the subtle emphasis that screamed of hidden knowledge. It wasn't just a mistake, it was a breadcrumb, a key to understanding how deep his control went. I decided to retrace my steps, revisiting every interaction, every casual remark, every dinner conversation. Patterns emerged, subtle but undeniable. Alex had been weaving himself into my life and Daniel's life for months, maybe even years, building trust and eroding boundaries without either of us noticing. My anger bubbled up, but so did fear. I realized I was dealing with someone who thought 3 steps ahead, someone who understood human weakness and used it like a weapon. At work, I began noticing strange coincidences. Emails deleted too quickly, messages left on read that should have been answered, phone calls I didn't remember making. And then I found it, a document on Daniel's laptop, misfiled under work. My heart thudded in my chest as I opened it. It was a list of names, dates, and amounts of money, tracing back months. And there, in plain text, was a mention of a gift for Alex, accompanied by Daniel's name. My stomach dropped. Had Alex manipulated Daniel financially too? Or was this part of a bigger scheme I still couldn't comprehend? Determined to find out, I confronted my own fear. I couldn't involve Daniel yet. He would never believe that his closest friend, his confidant, had orchestrated such chaos. I had to gather proof, piece by piece, quietly. I began keeping a detailed record, messages, calls, even small gestures Alex made that seemed harmless but were, in fact, deliberate. I was playing a dangerous game, but knowledge was power, and I needed every shred of it. One evening, while Alex visited under the guise of casual friendliness, I noticed something strange. A folder he carried, thin, barely noticeable, but with a logo I recognized immediately. It belonged to the law firm handling Daniel's company. My heart raced. What was he doing with it? And why hadn't Daniel mentioned anything? The tension was unbearable, but I had to remain calm. I smiled politely, asked meaningless questions, and observed. And then, in a quiet moment, he made another slip, this one more revealing than the last. He mentioned a meeting I hadn't known about, a meeting where Daniel's name was tied to decisions he shouldn't have been making. My mind reeled. Was Alex setting Daniel up? Or worse, using him as a pawn in something far more dangerous than I'd imagined? That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts raced. Everything Alex touched, everything he knew could be used against us. Daniel is blind to it, and I can't tell him yet. But I have to act. I need to understand the full extent of his plan before it's too late. I decided to start secretly tracking Alex. Every call, every meeting, every hidden interaction. I set cameras, kept notes, and even followed him discreetly one evening. The things I discovered chilled me to the bone. Alex was meeting with someone I'd never seen before, someone who knew far too much about Daniel and me. Their conversation was cryptic, referencing the accident and keeping the secret hidden. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just manipulation, it was a full-scale plan that could destroy our lives. And yet, despite the fear, a fire ignited inside me, a desire not just to protect Daniel and myself, but to make Alex pay for every lie, every betrayal, every boundary he had crossed. The thought of revenge, once a shadow in my mind, became concrete, a path I could see clearly. But it required patience. Every move had to be calculated, every action precise. And so, I waited. I watched. I prepared. Alex thought he controlled everything, but he had no idea the storm gathering quietly behind my calm exterior. And soon, he would learn just how dangerous a woman scorned could be. The day started like any other, but I could feel a tension simmering just beneath the surface. Every glance from Alex, every seemingly innocent remark, now carried weight. I wasn't just paranoid anymore, I was aware. And that awareness had become a weapon I intended to use. I decided it was time to dig deeper. Daniel still trusted Alex blindly, so I had to operate in the shadows. I spent hours reviewing the notes and recordings I had collected, connecting the dots between Alex's casual visits, the mysterious financial documents, and the encrypted messages on Daniel's devices. It was a map of manipulations so intricate that it would make anyone else doubt their sanity. But I knew it was real, and I knew I had to act carefully. That evening, under the pretense of meeting a friend, I followed Alex again, my camera hidden in my bag, recording every step. He walked with confidence, unaware of my presence. Then he entered a building I had never seen him enter before. A small office tucked between two larger buildings. Peering through a gap in the blinds, I saw him meet with the stranger from the previous night. Their conversation was hushed, but I caught words like evidence, cover-up, and disappearance. My stomach turned. What were they planning? And why was Daniel's name tied to it? I realized the stakes were far higher than I had imagined. Alex wasn't just trying to control Daniel, he was orchestrating something much darker, something that could destroy our lives entirely. The fire that had once consumed our home now seemed like a warning compared to the danger we were stepping into. Returning home, I found Daniel waiting for me, oblivious to the danger surrounding him. He smiled, trusting, naive. I wanted to warn him, to tell him everything, but I couldn't. Not yet. The pieces had to fall into place first. I had to understand the full scope of Alex's plan before revealing it. Patience was my only ally. That night, I stayed awake, reviewing every detail, every slip Alex had made. And then it hit me, the encrypted message I had ignored weeks ago. It wasn't just a casual note, it contained instructions, timelines, and threats. Alex had planned every move meticulously, and we had been living on borrowed time. I realized that the stranger Alex had been meeting was a key player, someone who could bring Daniel and me to ruin. But they didn't know I was watching, analyzing, and preparing. I began to devise a strategy, a plan that would turn Alex's manipulations against him. It was risky, dangerous, but it was the only way to protect what was left of our lives. Days passed, and my secret operation became more intense. I intercepted calls, traced emails, and even managed to gain temporary access to Alex's devices. What I discovered was horrifying. He had been fabricating evidence, manipulating situations, and creating false narratives to make Daniel question his own judgment. The betrayal cut deep, but it also fueled the fire of revenge within me. Finally, I had enough. Enough evidence, enough understanding, enough control. The time to act was coming, and I would strike with precision. But there was one problem. I needed to bait Alex, to make him reveal his full plan without suspecting that I was ready to turn it against him. I devised a risky trap, a staged conversation, hints dropped deliberately, and subtle manipulations that would force him to expose the final pieces of his scheme. My heart pounded with anticipation. One wrong move, and everything could collapse. But I was ready. Alex thought he was the predator, but he had no idea the storm I had prepared in silence was about to strike. I had spent weeks watching, waiting, planning. Every moment, every detail, every subtle gesture Alex made was logged in my mind like a blueprint. The time for silence was over. I needed him to reveal himself completely, and I needed him to do it in front of evidence that couldn't be denied. The morning started with a tension that made my stomach churn. Daniel had no idea how close we were to the edge, but I could see the worry creeping into his eyes. He didn't know yet that he had been a pawn. I pretended to be my usual self, calm, composed, cheerful. But inside, I was a hurricane of anger, fear, and determination. I sent Alex a message, casually hinting that I had discovered something he didn't want me to know. I didn't threaten him outright. That would have made him suspicious. Instead, I let curiosity do the work. By mid-afternoon, he was at my apartment, insisting on a private conversation. I let him in, closed the door, and smiled sweetly. Every word I spoke was measured, every movement deliberate. "You know," I began, "I've been thinking a lot about trust. About loyalty. About what it means to betray someone you claim to care about." Alex's face flickered, the first sign of real emotion I had seen in weeks, fear. He masked it quickly, forcing a smirk. "Olivia, you worry too much. I don't know what you're implying." But I had anticipated his reaction. I led him to my laptop, casually opening files that I had discovered over the past few weeks. Financial documents, emails, hidden messages. Everything he had used to manipulate Daniel and me. His eyes widened. I could see the cracks forming in his facade. "You've been very careful," I said softly, letting the weight of my gaze sink in. "Almost too careful. But everyone leaves a trail. Everyone." He tried to reach for the laptop, but I was faster. "Don't touch that," I warned, my voice firm. "I think it's time you explain yourself. Everything. Or you'll regret the secrets you've kept." The room was thick with tension. Alex's smug confidence had evaporated, replaced by a cold, calculating panic. He realized the web he had spun was unraveling, and I was holding the scissors. Hours passed as I forced him to confess, carefully coaxing the truth out. The manipulations, the lies, the attempts to control Daniel, the hidden surveillance. Every detail spilled out like poison from his lips. And yet, he thought he still had the upper hand. He didn't understand that I had more than evidence. I had a plan to ensure that every person he had hurt would see the consequences of his actions. By nightfall, he was exhausted, broken, and exposed. I could have stopped there, could have handed everything over to the authorities. But I wanted more, justice, not just accountability. I needed Daniel to see the full picture, to understand that every doubt, every fear he had experienced was the result of someone else's cruelty. As he left my apartment, defeated and shaking, I felt a surge of satisfaction, but also a chilling realization: the storm wasn't over yet. There were still consequences to face, repercussions for everyone involved, and the final chapter had yet to be written. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind 1,000 times, each scenario playing out like a scene in a movie, each possible outcome calculated with precision. Tonight was the night I would end this nightmare, not with rage, but with cold, calculated justice. The evening air was thick with anticipation as Daniel and I arrived at the gala. It was a charity event, one where influential people gathered, unaware that they were about to witness the unmasking of a man who had caused more pain than they could imagine. I moved with deliberate grace, my smile a mask that hid the storm brewing inside me. Alex was there, dressed impeccably, confident as ever, or so he thought. He didn't realize that every person in this room would soon know the truth. I approached him calmly, letting the crowd see us together, my hand brushing his deliberately. His confident smirk faltered the moment our eyes met. "I think it's time people knew the real Alex," I said softly, just loud enough for him to hear, letting a ripple of curiosity pass through the crowd. He turned pale, realizing he was about to lose the last vestiges of control. I didn't shout accusations. I didn't need to. I had set up everything beforehand, emails printed, messages displayed on a discreet projector, photos that proved his manipulations, everything neatly documented. As the screens flickered to life, the room fell silent. Every guest, every influential figure, watched as the man they had admired for years was stripped bare, his lies exposed in full clarity. Alex's attempts to deny, to deflect, to charm, failed miserably. He was a broken man under the scrutiny of his peers, and I felt a chilling satisfaction as the magnitude of his deceit was laid bare. But even in that moment of triumph, I knew the scars left by his actions would not heal overnight. Daniel's hurt, my sleepless nights, the betrayal, it all lingered. I turned to Daniel, whose eyes were wide with shock and relief. "Everything you doubted," I whispered, "was because of him. But now, you see the truth." He nodded, his gratitude and trust a balm to the wounds that had festered for too long. As security escorted Alex away, I felt a weight lift, though the tension of the past months still clung to me like a shadow. I had won, yes, but the victory was not in vengeance alone. It was in reclaiming my power, in refusing to be silenced, in proving that someone who dares to destroy lives will eventually face the consequences. Later that night, I sat alone, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The fire of anger had transformed into a resolve stronger than I could have imagined. I had fought, I had suffered, and I had emerged stronger, not just as Olivia the survivor, but as Olivia, the woman who refused to be defeated. And as I looked out at the city lights, a quiet determination settled over me. Life would never be the same, but now it was mine, fully, undeniably, and without fear.